This is the Ohio AgNet from the voice you know at the News You Trust studios, sponsored by BASF and Veltima Fungicide, the proven #1 for the toughest corn diseases with long-lasting residual. When you need to be confident your fungicide will perform. I'm Ty Higgins. Breaking news out of Texas as USDA has confirmed a case of New World screwworm in a 3-week-old calf. You can read about it now at ohioagnet.com. We're hitting the road and stopping at rural coffee shops, diners, and your favorite morning gathering spots across the state. When we're there, the first 25 folks through the door get a free cup of coffee, a limited edition Ohio's Country Journal mug, and the latest issue of OCJ, all on us. Want us to visit your hometown hangout? Head to ocj.com/coffee shop and sign up your local spot today from Ohio's Country Journal and Leist Mercantile. A new Planting Green cab cam, a soybean research update, and a couple more days of sunshine this week. This morning's news feed delivered by Ebert's Field Seed, proven local seed performance for Ohio farmers. It's time to start planting Ebert's. Call 937-473-2521 or visit online at ebertsseeds.com. In the latest cab cam, we're planting green with Ted Logan in Morrow County. He's about 25% done with his corn and soybeans. He had to wait a little bit longer because he's planting green.
2 or 3 weeks here in the rain, trying to think about all the things to try to fix and be ready for when the weather's decent like it is now. I was very surprised for how wet it was last week, that to have this great weather now. We're making hay and it's dry enough to plant corn. It'd be nice if the rye wasn't quite this tall, but I'm confident that it'll do well.
Have you ever planted in rye this tall?
Last year, yes.
Okay.
The key is it's only 30 pounds to the acre, so it's a very thin crop. But the benefits are it shades the ground, so I have very few winter annuals that are growing. And I feel like I'm harvesting an awful lot of carbon. And then if it's dry, it's very nice to have that mulch later in the season to hold the moisture, and I felt like my yield has done well the past couple years because of the extra mulch. It's protecting the soil and holding the moisture in.
How long have you been farming like this and planting green, and how long have you been no-till?
Strict no-till cover crops for the last 15 years. We've no-till soybeans into rye green the past 15 years, but I've been brave enough the past 5 years to do that in corn here, and so it's worked out well.
And you're going to really be able to compare here at the end of the season. You've got a field you're doing a little bit of a different practice on to kind of compare and contrast how this is working.
Right, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I killed off the strips of rye to let that melt away, and then there's strips of green, and then we'll enter it into the E fields as far as the yield comparison to be able to see whether there is a benefit of planting green like this, whether there's a yield penalty or whether if in fact there is a benefit.
You can watch the entire Planting Green cab cam with Ted Logan in Morrow County online now at ohioagnet.com and on YouTube at Ohio AgNet TV. Let's check in with our weekly update from the Ohio Soybean Council and your checkoff dollars at work. Here's Dusty Sonnenberg.
Joining me today is Dr. Taylor Dill. Taylor is the Director of Research with the Ohio Soybean Council. Taylor, a lot of folks out busy this time of year in the fields. We're going through planting season. We've got folks that are side dressing corn. We've got chemical applications being made, a lot of different things busy. And research is very busy too. Let's talk about some of the checkoff-funded research, either continuing projects that have been started in previous years or some stuff that's new this year.
Some of the projects that should be currently being planted and in some areas may or may not be more delayed. We have white mold research happening in Northwest Ohio for fungicide efficacy, things like that. Better white mold management for the Northeast, which is where our main problem areas are. We also have in-season potassium research going on in a couple of locations in Ohio, as well as some continuing progress with our replant recommendations. So that would be going along with our replant tools that we're making and just added research to be able to hone in those tools and make them more efficient.
Great information, and again, all funded by your Soybean Checkoff. My guest again today, Dr. Taylor Dill, Director of Research with the Ohio Soybean Council. And this update brought to us by the Ohio Soybean Council and your Soybean Checkoff.
Thank you, Dusty. Here's Ryan Martin with the forecast, brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance. Online at seedconsultants.com.
We have high pressure still dominating the region here today and tomorrow. We are going to be sunny, warm, and dry all the way through. Some moisture finally starting to get into the Buckeye State for the weekend. Saturday morning, seeing some scattered showers here and there, and some of this action lingers right on through Sunday morning to midday. I think we can pick up anywhere from a quarter to 1 inch generally. A couple of stronger thunderstorms may boost totals in a few localized areas. We'll have to see how that plays out. But generally speaking, the moisture is done by Sunday afternoon. We turn out dry Monday, Tuesday of next week. That dry period holds all the way through Thursday afternoon. A frontal boundary slipping through Friday afternoon into Saturday the 13th gives scattered showers. And then we follow that up with a very wet week of the 15th. The flow pattern going more west to east or northwest to southeast. That will contribute more moisture. I'm Ryan Martin.
Thanks, Ryan. Farmers are welcoming the FTC's investigation into the fertilizer cartel with a standing ovation. With more on that, here's Allison Kinney.
The Federal Trade Commission has launched a long-awaited and highly anticipated investigation into the fertilizer industry pricing practices and market concentration. Chairman Andrew Ferguson announced on Thursday, May 28, 2026, at a gathering of farmers from across 18 states on a North Texas farm. The announcement drew an immediate response from the farm leaders in attendance. The event fed up fertilizer cartel profits off farmers' backs and your grocery bill, took aim at crushing input costs set by Mosaic, Nutrien, CF Industries, and Coach. The costs have driven family farms to a breaking point, with bankruptcies climbing to record numbers as fertilizer shareholders' profits hit record highs. To paint a picture with numbers, fertilizer prices rose more than 150% since 2020, far outpacing inflation, while net farm income fell 31% from its peak in 2022. For more information, the entire article can be found at ocj.com. For the Ohio AgNet, I'm Allison Kinney reporting.
We'll learn more about the invisible soybean killer in today's featured audio next as the Ohio AgNet continues.
Hi, I'm Tyler Miller, a soybean farmer from Crawford County. When I grow soybeans, I'm not just raising a crop, I'm creating fuel at home. Biodiesel adds nearly $2 to our bushel price and strengthens our energy independence. If you're not using biodiesel on your farm, now's the time. If you're not sure how to get it, ask your local fuel supplier. Ready to turn last year's crop into this year's fuel? Learn more at soyohio.org.
This message is brought to you by Ohio soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Be aware, ticks are there. As you head outdoors, remember to avoid tall grass, wear light-colored full-coverage clothing, and use EPA-registered repellent. Be sure to thoroughly check for ticks after you head in for the day. If you find any ticks, remove them carefully with tweezers and watch for symptoms such as fever, headache, or rash. For more information on ticks and tick bite prevention, head over to ohio.gov/ticks.
Welcome back to the Ohio AgNet. I'm Ty Higgins, and in today's featured audio, Joe Everett tells us about the invisible soybean killer.
Plant diseases need to be a top priority for farmers to keep track of. In 2024 alone, white mold cost soybean farmers an estimated $281 million in yield losses, and the management window for this disease is shorter than many farmers realize. Kent Dibert, technical service representative with BASF, said white mold starts at flowering.
It's definitely a very aggressive disease and certainly a disease we all want to keep our minds on in soybean growing areas. And certainly it tends to affect the soybean crop from canopy closure on. And, once you've had a history of white mold in that field, whether it's from growing soybeans or crops like dry edible beans, canola, sunflowers, etc., it usually persists as a problem in future years. And, that's when we start making those applications from row closure on. And timing is absolutely critical for white mold applications. And we spend a lot of time talking about that in all of our customer meetings and time spent with farmers and ag chem retailers.
Since this disease starts off invisibly, Dibert said farmers cannot wait until they see it to do something.
White mold tends to affect or enter the soybean plant rather through dried flower tissue. And so normally indeterminate soybeans in the Midwest and the Northern Plains are growing. And basically from that, obviously as soon as we see that first bloom, that's the R1 stage. But the problem with that stage and making applications, it tends to be a little bit too early. That's why we target that early R2 timing, and that's when you have one open flower or flower present on that main stem of the soybean plant and the upper two most nodes. And that, as a matter of fact, coincides very closely as well with row closure. So that tends to be our key indicators when those rows closed, or even a couple days ahead of that, is when we start making those first, or if it's only one application of a fungicide, that's when we want to target that initial application is at that early R2 timing.
In areas with high amounts of white mold, Dibert said farmers sometimes have to make multiple fungicide applications.
And certainly in some areas where white mold is a bigger problem and persists well into that season, we may be making multiple applications, maybe making up to two applications. And if you're going to be making two applications, you can target that first app, right at row closure, or that early R2, and then generally 2 weeks later, give or take, is when we would come in with that second application. But timing is absolutely critical when it comes to controlling white mold, because it's an aggressive disease, and we're just waiting. Once we've got these sclerotia, they're called, or these fruiting bodies, which is essentially the seed in the ground, where white mold starts. Once we've got that in that soil, we're just waiting on moisture, waiting on rain events, heavy dews, a high moisture environment, and minimal air movement in that canopy. Once it's closed, is when white mold really starts to take off.
Again, that was Kent Dibert, a technical service representative with BASF. Reporting for the Ohio AgNet, I'm Joe Everett.
Thank you, Joe. Back with markets and analysis after this on the Ohio AgNet.
Looking for heavy equipment but don't know where to buy? Purple Wave Auction has you covered. Always online and always no reserve. It's your destination for construction or ag equipment ready to work. We even sell semis, trailers, and fleet equipment for your operation. Best part? It's free to join. Head to purplewave.com. That's purplewave.com. Sign up for a free account and start bidding today. Purple Wave Auction, the easiest and most straightforward way to buy and sell equipment.
Ohio farmers, we know summer means long days in the field and plenty of work still to do. And the Ohio AgNet wants to bring lunch to your farm. The Feeding Farmers contest is back this summer, and we'll be choosing farms across Ohio for a visit from the Ohio AgNet, along with free lunch for your farm, family, and crew. Get entered today at ohioagnet.com/feedingfarmers. Feeding Farmers is brought to you by Ag Revolution, Paradise Energy Solutions, Tempty, and the Ohio AgNet.
Welcome back to the Ohio AgNet. I'm Ty Higgins, and today's market analysis brought to you by Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to bring a brand new soybean crush facility to Upper Sandusky. Learn more about marketing your soybeans with LDC at 574-566-2113. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished the Wednesday session on another down swing. Corn down anywhere from 6 to 9 cents. Beans down double digits. Wheat down double digits. Chicago, Kansas City, and Minneapolis wasn't too far behind. You remember when we talked about the excessive fund length that we saw in the marketplace late last week into the turn of the month? Yep, that continues to be liquidated. Yesterday's action was tied to stale longs jumping out. There's a lot of fund length that probably still has to be liquidated so far, and this could continue through the entire first week all the way into early next week. The one thing that could stop it, we've got an upcoming WASDE report. Not sure there's much changing there, but the corn balance sheet likely does a little bit, with exports likely having to increase a little bit as well. Crude oil yesterday up about $2 to $3 a barrel on more geopolitical risk, and that energy market risk is going to likely hold through the rest of the week. I'm Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Ryan. Overnight markets on the Ohio AgNet brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance. Online at seedconsultants.com. Corn for July in the overnight trade down a penny and a quarter, $4.30 and a quarter at last check. December $4.58.5 down by a penny and a quarter as well. Soybeans for July down a penny and a quarter, $11.52 3/4. New crop November down a half cent at $11.66 3/4. Wheat for July $5.85 a bushel, down 2 1/4, September 598 1/4 down by 2 1/2. After Friday's trade, live cattle for June down 105 at 246.62. June lean hogs up 35 points at 96.05. For the Ohio AgNet, I'm Ty Higgins. We'll see you down the road.